I never thought I'd start a story like this, but if you're watching, you deserve the truth. I jumped from a sinking boat because I thought the ocean would give me a chance. I was wrong. The water wasn't safer. It was worse. Much worse. And in those first few seconds after hitting the surface, I knew I had traded one danger for another I wasn't prepared to face. If I had hesitated even a moment longer, I wouldn't be here telling this. What I saw down there, what I felt around me, it still follows me whenever I close my eyes. People always imagine the ocean as blue, calm, open, endless. That's the picture we hold in our heads because it's easier to believe nature has some kind of beauty that protects us. But when you're out there, far from land, with no one coming and the sky is closing in on you, that beauty disappears. All that's left is the weight of the water below, the pressure around you, and the terrifying thought that you don't belong in that world. The ocean reminds you of that immediately. I learned it the hard way, the moment I hit the water and felt something brush my leg. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the beginning, before the alarms, before the panic, before that final jump that changed everything. I was on a small vessel heading back from a routine supply trip. Calm waters, predictable route, nothing unusual. I'd done it dozens of times. It was supposed to be simple. It always was. Until that day. Until something deep under us shifted, and everything we thought we understood about the ocean changed. The air that morning was humid, the kind that clings to your skin. The sky didn't look threatening, but the horizon felt too still, almost frozen. I didn't pay enough attention to it. None of us did. We didn't realize nature was holding its breath before turning on us. The first sign came from below. A vibration, subtle but unmistakable. The kind that makes loose tools rattle. I remember looking at the others, eyebrows raised, waiting for someone to laugh and say it was nothing. But nobody laughed. We all felt it. A boat doesn't usually shake unless something hits it or something inside is failing. We checked everything we could. Engines, pumps, bilge, fuel lines. Everything looked fine. But the vibration kept coming, deeper each time, crawling up through the metal and into our bones. That's when the captain's face changed. He didn't say it out loud, but we knew. It wasn't us. It was the ocean. An hour later, the first alarm went off. I'll never forget that sound. Sharp, metallic, urgent. It cuts through conversation, through thought, through every sense you have. It tells you one thing. Something is happening that you can't ignore. The engine temperature was spiking. We slowed down, checked for blockages, but the readings kept climbing. Then the smell hit. Burning. Sharp. Acrid. If you've ever smelled machinery overheating, you know exactly the kind of fear it brings. That smell means your options are slipping away. We tried cooling systems, vents, everything. Nothing worked. The engine wasn't just overheating, it was fighting something. The pressure in the lower compartments rose unnaturally fast. When one of us opened the maintenance hatch, a blast of hot air shot out with a force that made him stumble back. That's when the captain ordered us to cut power completely. We were dead in the water. I didn't panic yet. Boats stall, engines fail, people get towed, it happens. But then came the sound none of us expected. A crack. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep. A sound that comes from the structure, from the skeleton of the boat itself. The kind that means something is bending or shifting where it shouldn't. We froze, every one of us. That crack echoed more in our heads than in the air. We checked the hull. No impact marks, no breaches. But the vibration returned, stronger, almost rhythmic. Like something below was moving, pushing against us, or worse, circling us. Within minutes, water began to seep in through places that should have been sealed tight. Not flooding, not bursting, just leaking. Slow, cold, constant. That was almost worse because slow water means pressure, and pressure means something structural is giving way. The captain's voice changed again. He wasn't confident anymore. He told us to prepare life vests, just in case. Just in case could mean anything. But when he said it, we all heard the truth. We might have to abandon the boat. The sky darkened fast. Clouds rolled in like they were being pulled by something heavy. The wind stayed strangely calm, but the waves grew taller, hitting the hull in uneven patterns. The ocean wasn't reacting to the storm above, it was reacting to something below. Then came the second crack. Louder. That one shook the deck. We ran, securing equipment, tying down anything that could become a hazard. The captain radioed for assistance. No response. He tried again. Static. He switched channels. Static again. 3 different frequencies. Nothing. Something was interfering, blocking signals, leaving us isolated. By the time the third crack hit, we were already knee-deep in water. When panic rises on a boat, it spreads fast. People don't think straight. They start grabbing things they don't need, shouting instructions nobody hears, moving with frantic energy that makes everything worse. I felt it too. The surge of adrenaline that makes your hands shake and your chest tighten. But I forced myself to stay steady. I kept telling myself, boats float. They're built to stay up. We just needed to slow the damage and stabilize, but we couldn't. Water poured in faster. The bow dipped. The stern rose. Tilted decks are a nightmare. You can't walk properly. You have to cling to whatever you can. And every step becomes a fight against slipping. That's when the ocean started pulling at us. The waves weren't crashing. They were dragging. Not sideways, but downward. The whole boat felt like it was being tugged toward something deep. The vibration we'd felt earlier turned into a steady pulse, like the heartbeat of something alive. I looked over the edge. The water didn't look normal. Too dark, too thick. Like it wasn't reflecting light anymore, but swallowing it. We had no choice. The captain gave the order, prepare to abandon. Not jump, not leave, prepare. Which meant check gear, tie straps tight, secure emergency packs, form a line, wait for instructions. But there was no time for order. The next tilt nearly threw half the crew overboard. One man slid and would have gone straight into the water if another hadn't grabbed him. That's when the captain shouted the final command, "Jump, now!" I didn't think. I didn't have the luxury. I saw the water rising behind me like a wall and felt the deck tilt again. I ran. My legs weren't moving the way I wanted, slipping on wet metal. I felt my foot catch on something, stumbled, regained balance, and pushed forward. The railing was already half underwater. I put one hand on it, swung my body over, and launched myself away from the sinking boat. The moment I left the deck, time stretched. I remember the feeling of weightlessness, the wind rushing past my ears, the sight of the boat dipping unnaturally fast, and the horrifying realization that I was jumping into the darkest patch of ocean I'd ever seen. The water below didn't look like water. It looked like a void. Then I hit it. Cold. Not normal ocean cold. Deep cold. A kind that seizes your muscles instantly. The impact knocked the air out of me. I sank faster than I expected, pulled not just by gravity but by something else, something tugging downward. I opened my eyes underwater for a second despite the sting, and I wish I hadn't. Shapes. Not clear, not defined, but present, moving. I forced myself upward, kicking against the pull. My chest burned, my legs ached, but I pushed until my head burst through the surface and I gasped for air. The boat was behind me, already halfway submerged. People were shouting, swimming, fighting the same unseen pull I felt. That's when something brushed my leg again. Not seaweed, not debris, something that moved with intent. I didn't look down. I didn't want to see. I just swam, harder than I ever had in my life. But the ocean wasn't done with us. The waves formed strange patterns, almost spiraling. The water around us churned even though the wind stayed still. It was like something beneath us was stirring, shifting currents, pulling everything into a slow rotation. I kept trying to swim out of it, but no matter which direction I turned, the water resisted. Then, somewhere behind me, someone screamed. Not from fear, from pain. I turned just enough to see him splashing violently, trying to push something away. The water around him bubbled, but I couldn't see what was below. He was dragged under halfway, then came back up, coughing and clawing at the surface. The terror in his eyes. I'll never forget it. I swam harder. My arms burned, my throat tightened, but I refused to stop. A few meters ahead, I spotted one of the emergency float bags drifting. I paddled toward it with everything I had left. When I reached it, I clung to it like it was the last solid thing in the world. But even then, even holding onto that bag, I could feel the ocean tugging at me, trying to pull me back toward the sinking boat, toward whatever was beneath it. And that's when I realized something chilling. The boat wasn't sinking from damage alone. It was being pulled under, and so were we. I held on to that emergency float bag with both arms wrapped around it, squeezing so tight my muscles began to cramp. The water kept churning around me in a strange circular motion. Not like a whirlpool, but like something enormous beneath us was stirring the sea without breaking the surface. The boat was disappearing fast, pulled downward at a speed no normal sinking vessel should move. I watched the bow vanish, then the deck, then the last metal railing as it slipped beneath the water like a hand being swallowed whole. That moment alone could have ended every rational thought I had left. But I forced my mind to stay focused on survival. I had to. The ocean didn't care how scared I was. Fear wasn't going to keep me above the surface. People around me were shouting, some calling for help, some calling for each other. But the swirling water made it nearly impossible for us to stay close. Every time I tried paddling toward another survivor, the current shifted, pulling us apart as if the ocean wanted to scatter us. Then came another sound, one I didn't recognize at first because it wasn't natural. A deep, resonant hum, very low, vibrating through the water itself. I could feel it in my chest, in my teeth, through the float bag. It wasn't coming from the sky or the waves. It was rising from below. One of the others, about 10 meters from me, suddenly froze and stared downward. His face went pale and his body stiffened like he'd felt something grab him. He didn't scream this time. He didn't have the chance. His head jerked down as if his legs were pulled under. He slipped beneath the surface in a single smooth motion, like a puppet yanked by invisible strings. And he didn't come back up. That sight hit me harder than the sinking boat. Panic tried to take over, clawing its way up my throat, begging me to hyperventilate, to flail, to waste the energy I desperately needed to conserve. But something inside me snapped into survival mode. I tightened my grip on the bag, kept my legs above the water as much as I could, and forced myself to breathe evenly. "Stay calm," I whispered to myself, voice shaking. "Stay calm, or you're done." The sky began spitting rain, thin at first, then thicker. The wind stayed strangely gentle despite the chaos below us. The contrast made everything feel unreal, like the storm above and whatever was happening beneath weren't connected at all. The ocean had its own agenda. I turned slowly, scanning for anything. A lifeboat, debris, another survivor, something solid to climb onto. But the sea around me was empty except for a few floating objects that spun uselessly in the swirling current. I knew I couldn't keep drifting inside that circle. I needed to get out of it. So I made a decision that still feels reckless when I look back on it now. I let go with one arm and used the other to paddle hard against the current, kicking my legs with everything I had. The float bag slowed me down, but I wasn't letting it go. It was the only thing keeping me from being dragged completely. Stroke after stroke, I fought while the water pushed back. My shoulders screamed from the effort. My breathing grew harsh, but I kept going. Inch by inch, I felt the current weakening. My limbs were trembling, my teeth chattering from the cold, my heart pounding against my ribs like it was trying to break free. But then, I broke through. The strange circular pull behind me faded. The ocean calmed around me, still rough, but normal rough. I didn't look back. I couldn't. Not then. I focused on staying afloat as the rain thickened into a downpour. Every drop stung my face. The horizon was almost invisible behind the gray curtain of water. Then I heard something unexpected. A splash. Not the chaotic kind from the whirlpool, but steady, rhythmic splashes, like paddles hitting water. I twisted around, squinting through the rain. For a second, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. But no. Something was approaching. It was a cooler, a large industrial supply cooler, one of the heavy-duty ones we used on deck. It floated surprisingly well, and it wasn't alone. A man was clinging to it, using its buoyancy to keep himself above water. His head bobbed in and out of view with the waves, but he was alive. I pushed toward him, calling out his name, Jonas. He turned his head toward my voice, eyes wide and unfocused at first, then sharpening when he recognized me. "You're alive," he gasped. "Barely," I replied, grabbing onto the cooler beside him. "Just stay with me." He was shaking violently, and I could see the exhaustion etched into every movement he made. His life vest was half undone, probably loosened during the fall. He didn't seem aware of it. Shock had already taken hold. "What happened?" he asked through chattering teeth. "I don't know," I said, "but we need to get as far from that pull as possible." He nodded, though I don't think he really understood. The rain hammered harder. Thunder rolled across the sky, distant but growing closer. The ocean wasn't done with us. For a while, Jonas and I drifted with the waves, too drained to swim, too cold to talk. The cooler kept us both stable, and I held it tight like it was the last safe thing in the world. My fingers were numb, my arms felt like lead, my face stung from the rain, but I refused to let myself slip. Then the wind finally picked up, hard. The waves grew aggressive, slamming into us from all directions. Lightning cracked across the horizon, illuminating the dark water in brief flashes. Each flash revealed an ocean that looked angrier than the last. But what terrified me most wasn't the waves or the lightning. It was Jonas's voice when he whispered, "They're still here." I froze. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes were locked on the water beneath him, pupils dilated, breathing shallow. "They followed us out," he muttered. I tried to control my voice. "Jonas, there's nothing here." "You didn't see their shapes?" he whispered. "Under the surface, when the boat was going down?" I swallowed hard. "I saw something." "They're not gone," he said. "They were under me just now." Before I could respond, he jerked violently, almost slipping off the cooler. I grabbed him by the vest, anchoring him against the waves. "What happened?" I shouted. He fought for words. "Something touched me." My stomach dropped. It wasn't the first time something had brushed me either. But the idea that it was intentional, that it was still happening, sent a wave of cold through me that had nothing to do with the ocean. "We have to stay calm," I said. "If we panic, we lose everything." But even as I said the words, I couldn't convince myself, because deep down I felt it too. A presence. Not a creature I could name or identify, but something moving beneath us with purpose. Something watching. I tried shifting my legs upward again, keeping them near the surface as much as the waves allowed. Jonas did the same, clinging to the cooler for dear life. Lightning flashed again. This time, the light revealed something in the water about 15 meters away. A disturbance. A shape. Long, sinuous, dark, gliding just beneath the surface before vanishing into the depths. It didn't break the water. It didn't thrash. It moved with horrifying silence. Jonas saw it too. His breath hitched. His nails dug into the cooler. "We're not going to make it," he whispered. "Yes, we are," I said firmly, though my voice cracked. "We just need to outlast the storm. Someone will come." He let out a weak, bitter laugh. "No one even knows what happened." He wasn't wrong. The radio had failed. The signal interference had cut us off long before we abandoned the boat. We hadn't even managed to get a single distress message through. But I couldn't let that thought break me. Not then. Not while we still had a chance. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time loses meaning when you're fighting to stay alive. The storm raged, tossing us like toys. Waves crashed over us, flipping the cooler once and nearly dragging Jonas away. I yanked him back with everything I had left. The shapes beneath the water came and went, sometimes closer, sometimes farther, always silent. At some point, the storm began to weaken. The wind softened. The rain eased into a gentle drizzle. The ocean calmed. Not completely, but enough to let us breathe again. Jonas rested his head on the cooler, eyes closed. His breathing steadied. I watched the horizon, searching for any sign of a vessel, a light, a silhouette, anything. Then I saw it. A narrow, faint beam of light sweeping across the water. A searchlight. I almost cried out in relief, but something in my chest stopped me, because the light passed over us, then swept back, then paused. They had seen us. I waved my arm as high as I could, shouting with what little strength I had. Jonas did the same, lifting his head. The searchlight grew brighter. Closer, a low rumble of an engine echoed across the waves. A rescue vessel, far smaller than ours, but fast, purposeful. I felt the tension in my chest loosen for the first time since the boat had cracked. But the ocean wasn't finished. Just as the vessel approached, something enormous passed beneath us. The cooler shook. Jonas gasped and gripped the edges. I felt the water swell upward around us in a smooth, unnatural rise, like the surface itself was lifting. "No, no, please," Jonas begged, voice breaking. Then, as quickly as it came, the pressure released. Whatever had been beneath us retreated into the depths. The rescue boat reached us within seconds. A crew member threw a flotation line. I grabbed it first, securing it around Jonas before allowing them to pull me in. The moment my hands touched the solid railing of the rescue vessel, I felt a surge of relief so powerful my knees almost gave out. They hauled us aboard, wrapped us in blankets, and began checking our vitals. Jonas collapsed onto the deck, sobbing quietly. I sat beside him, staring back at the spot where the shapes had disappeared. One of the rescuers knelt beside me. "You're lucky we caught a signal flare from your vessel," he said. "We didn't fire one," I whispered. He frowned. "Someone did. Otherwise, we never would have found you." I looked back at the ocean. Something out there had signaled them. Something that wanted us found, or something that wanted us gone before it came back. I still don't know which. To this day, no one has explained the structural failures, the radio interference, the strange currents, or the shapes beneath the water. The official report called it unusual environmental conditions. That's all. But I know what I saw. I know what I felt. And whenever I hear a deep vibration coming from a ship engine, a passing truck, or even a heavy machine, I freeze for a moment, remembering that hum rising from the depths. The ocean is beautiful, yes, but there are places in it where you don't ever want to end up. Places that don't want you there. Places that feel alive, and I jumped straight into the worst one. Thank you for staying with me through this entire story. Your time means more than you know, and I truly appreciate you being here until the end. If you enjoyed this story and want more survival experiences like this one, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with someone who loves deep ocean mysteries. Your support helps keep these stories alive.